Hey there, and welcome in. We've got a really highly customized deep dive prepared specifically for you today, and the mission is a pretty big one.
Yeah, it really is. It's an expansive topic.
Right. We are looking at a stack of research and notes centered around a concept called the digital citadel, defending the sovereign self.
Fascinating paper.
Yeah, it's great. Essentially, we're exploring the blueprint of our near future, specifically looking at the years, 2026 through 2031, just to understand how the entire landscape of data security is fundamentally evolving.
And it's a transition we absolutely have to make, primarily because the environment that you and I operate in every single day is, well, it's rapidly becoming a hyperdata universe.
A hyperdata universe.
Right. The sheer volume of information being generated right now is just fundamentally incompatible with the security architectures we built back in the early 2000s.
I think the term hyperdata, it almost sounds a little too abstract, right? Until you actually look around your own house.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, the sources point out that we aren't just talking about, the emails you send or the photos you upload to some cloud server anymore.
No, it's way beyond that.
Right. We're talking about the smart thermostat sitting in your hallway that's actively adjusting the temperature based on your ambient body heat.
Or the autonomous shuttle navigating the street outside your window.
Exactly. That thing is calculating thousands of variables a second. Every single device around us is generating this relentless storm of data every single millisecond.
And the really sobering reality that's highlighted in the research is that our traditional firewalls, the ones we all rely on today, they simply cannot handle that volume
No.
or that level of complexity.
There's actually a really powerful analogy in the source material that drives that home. It suggests that in this hyperdata world, our current firewalls are basically going to look like sandcastles facing a tsunami.
That's a great way to put it.
You can build that wall of sand as high and as thick as you want, but when the wave actually hits,
It's just going to be completely washed away.
completely. And that forces a complete reevaluation of how we protect ourselves.
We basically have to move away from this paradigm of the static digital vault.
The vault. Right.
Historically, security has always been about locking things away in a hardened perimeter, and just hoping nobody breaches the walls.
But the walls always get breached eventually.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
the blueprint for the next few years suggests security has to become an active, constantly adapting immune system instead.
Okay, let's look at that static vault concept for a second. Because the notes argue that the entire history of our digital security is built on this massive historical flaw.
The static vault paradox.
Yes, the static vault paradox. The idea is that for the longest time, your data was only ever truly safe when it was completely useless to you.
Yeah, and that is the core vulnerability of traditional encryption.
How so?
Well, think about it. If you wanted to protect a sensitive file, you scrambled it mathematically, right? So no one could read it.
Right, you lock it up.
But the second you needed to actually analyze that data or run a software program on it or extract any actual value from
They
it,
had to decrypt it,
you had to pull it out of the vault.
which means by unlocking it, you made it vulnerable at the exact moment it became valuable.
And that brief window of decryption is where massive data breaches typically occur.
Ah, I see.
You essentially have a priceless painting
Yeah.
that is only safe if it remains in a dark, locked basement. The moment you bring it up to the gallery floor to actually appreciate it, it's entirely exposed to theft.
Okay, so the obvious question for you, me, and our hyper data future is, how do we actually use our data without bringing it out of the basement?
Right.
And the research introduces a breakthrough here called homomorphic encryption.
Yes.
From what I'm reading, this seems to be the tech world's major solution to the paradox. But how does it actually allow you to use data while it remains scrambled?
Well, it allows systems to perform complex algebraic operations on the ciphertext itself. So the simplest way to think about it is performing surgery on a locked box.
Surgery on a locked box. Okay, let's use the scenario from the sources to ground that, because it involves highly sensitive genomic data.
That's a perfect example.
So imagine you need to send your literal DNA building blocks across the globe to this incredibly advanced AI system. You're looking for a life-saving medical diagnosis.
Right, high stakes.
In the old static vault system, you'd have to decrypt your DNA data at the destination so the AI could actually read it.
Which exposes your most private biological information.
Exactly. But under homomorphic encryption,
Under homomorphic encryption, the AI receives the encrypted, scrambled data. It then runs its complex mathematical models and diagnostic algorithms on that scrambled data without ever decrypting it.
so it never sees your raw DNA.
Never. It then sends the encrypted result back to you, And you, holding the original key, decrypt the result.
Wow.
The AI manages to give you an accurate medical diagnosis without ever actually seeing a single piece of your unencrypted information.
It's doing the math blindly, but the math still works out perfectly on the other side.
Exactly.
So the takeaway for you, the listener, is that privacy and utility no longer have to be mutually exclusive.
Right.
We're moving into an era where we can utilize these incredibly powerful AI tools without handing over the raw, unshielded details of our personal lives.
It resolves a major tension in modern computing, for sure.
Yeah.
However, while we're developing these lockbox surgeries to protect our data, the offensive capabilities of the broader tech landscape are advancing just as fast.
Well, of course they are.
Which brings us to a rather urgent horizon line mentioned in the research.
Yes, the concept of Q-Day.
Q-Day.
Which, I gotta say, sounds a bit like the title of a sci-fi thriller.
It really does.
But the sources frame it as a very real impending moment. Q-Day is the day when quantum computers become powerful enough to shatter our current encryption methods.
It's a critical threat vector.
Mm-hmm.
The encryption we use right now to protect the global financial grid, national security communications, your personal bank accounts, standards like RSA encryption, they rely on specific mathematical limitations of classical computers.
Wait, so if quantum computers can process calculations that much faster, does that mean our entire financial grid is basically sitting on a ticking clock?
Essentially, yes.
Wow.
To really understand the vulnerability, you have to look at how RSA works.
Yeah.
It relies heavily on prime factorization.
Okay, prime numbers.
Right. It takes two incredibly large prime numbers and multiplies them together to create a public key.
Simple enough.
For a classical computer to work backward and figure out which two prime numbers were used, it would take thousands of years of trial and error.
Because it has to guess one by one.
Exactly. It's a one-way mathematical street. But a quantum computer, using something called Shor's algorithm, doesn't guess one by one.
Right.
It processes multiple possibilities simultaneously and can solve that problem in mere minutes.
Mere minutes instead of thousands of years.
Exactly. The one-way street suddenly becomes a two-way street.
So the Sandcastle meets the Tsunami. If prime numbers are no longer safe, what's the defense strategy here? The notes mention a shift to post-quantum cryptography, specifically something called lattice-based cryptography.
Yes.
But how does a lattice actually stop a quantum computer if that computer can process everything simultaneously?
Well, we have to abandon the prime number factorization entirely and move to multidimensional geometric problems.
Okay.
Instead of a one-way street, imagine a grid with hundreds or even thousands of dimensions. Lattice cryptography involves finding the shortest point, or the hidden vector, within this massive, complex grid.
That sounds incredibly difficult to even visualize.
That visual complexity is the point. The key difference here is that lattice problems introduce intentional mathematical noise into the grid.
Noise.
Yeah, the coordinates are constantly shifting. Even if a quantum computer can process all the possibilities at once, the mathematical noise obscures the true vector.
Oh, I see.
The quantum algorithms just get lost in the labyrinth because they cannot filter out the shifting variables to find the underlying structure.
So we are building these multi-dimensional shifting mazes to act as a quantum-resistant shield for our global infrastructure.
That's a good way to picture it.
That handles the macro level, the big financial and military grids. But I want to bring this down to the micro level, to the things you and I interact with every single day.
Right.
If the global grid is wrapped in a lattice labyrinth, how do I actually log into my email? Because the blueprint for the next few years definitively declares that passwords are dead.
They are. They're the weakest link in any security chain.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Mostly because they rely on human memory and human habits, which are notoriously predictable.
Well, the sources even point out that those 6-digit SMS codes you get texted to log into your bank, those are heavily compromised and intercepted far too easily now.
Way too easily.
So if passwords and SMS codes are a thing of the past, what replaces them?
We transition to the invisible layer.
The invisible layer.
This is the era of behavioral biometrics. The fundamental philosophy shifts from authenticating what you know, like a string of characters, to authenticating who you are and specifically how you move.
Okay, so if passwords are dead, what is the system actually looking at to know it's me? The notes describe this new digital fingerprint, but it goes way beyond just, putting your thumb on a glass scanner.
Way beyond. It's an aggregation of millions of subconscious data points.
Like what?
Well, the sensors in your devices are becoming acute enough to measure the specific microscopic pressure your thumb applies when you scroll through an article.
No way.
It measures the exact millisecond rhythm between your keystrokes when you type.
That is wild. It even notes the specific angle at which you hold your phone when you're sitting down versus when you're walking.
Yes.
It's constantly building this invisible profile of your physical habits. But it makes me wonder about the day-to-day reality of this.
How so?
Let's say I've had way too much espresso one morning, and I'm just typing 100 miles an hour. Is my own phone going to think I've been hacked and lock me out?
It's a valid concern, but it underscores just how sophisticated the AI driving the system actually has to be.
Right.
The system isn't just looking at raw speed. It's analyzing the relative timing between specific letter combinations, the arc of your finger pressure, the transition points.
Oh, okay.
Those underlying patterns scale with your speed. It establishes a dynamic baseline of your behavior that adapts to whether you're tired, caffeinated, or distracted.
That continuous adaptation plays right into a broader concept mentioned in the research, the zero trust philosophy.
Never trust, always verify.
Right.
Under the old static vault system, a password was basically a golden ticket. Once you entered it, the system trusted you completely and gave you free rein.
You're in.
A zero-trust system operates on the assumption that the network is always hostile. It doesn't just authenticate you once at the login screen.
It keeps checking.
It authenticates you hundreds of times a second in the background.
So if a hacker somehow bypasses an initial lock or steals a session token, the system is immediately checking to see if they type with your exact cadence or hold the device at your usual angle.
Exactly.
And when they inevitably don't, because they don't have your hands or your nervous system, the system recognizes the behavior doesn't match the digital fingerprint and just boots them out.
You literally become the password. The security layer is entirely frictionless for the actual user, but it's impossible to mimic for an intruder.
It sounds foolproof, but as I was reading through how the AI actually learns these behaviors, a massive logical hurdle jumped out at me.
The privacy issue.
Yeah, a severe catch-22 regarding privacy. To train these AI cyber guardians to distinguish between a legitimate user and a hacker, they require massive, incomprehensible amounts of behavioral training data.
Right. They need to see billions of interactions to understand the full spectrum of human digital behavior.
Right, but gathering up the specific typing rhythms, phone angles, and microtremors of billions of real people is a total privacy nightmare.
Oh, absolutely.
If you build a central database holding the physical behaviors of half the globe, aren't you just building the ultimate honeypot for hackers?
It would be catastrophic if breached, which is why the industry is leaning heavily into synthetic data to solve the training problem.
Now, the concept of synthetic data and ghost profiles, this might be the most fascinating part of this entire deep dive for me.
It's very clever.
How do you get real behavioral data without using real humans?
Engineers use advanced generative models to create fully fleshed out virtual profiles. These ghosts possess all the statistical complexities, behavioral quirks, and patterns of real human beings.
But they're not real.
Exactly. They type with human-like variability, they browse with human-like pauses, they even make mistakes.
But they belong to absolutely no one. They are purely mathematical constructs.
Less.
But if these ghosts don't actually exist, how do they teach the AI anything useful about real human hackers?
Because while the specific individuals are fabricated, the statistical distribution of the data perfectly mirrors reality. The AI learns the boundaries of normal human behavior and the anomalies of malicious attacks by studying these vast oceans of synthetic interactions.
Yeah.
You can throw billions of these ghost profiles at the system to train it safely.
And the secondary benefit here is brilliant.
The security aspect.
Yeah. If a hostile actor does manage to breach the facility and steal the training database, they walk away with absolutely nothing of value.
Nothing at all.
They've essentially stolen a massive database of mathematical hallucinations. Not a single piece of data corresponds to a real person, meaning no actual privacy has been violated.
It's an incredibly elegant workaround. We are quite literally training the guardians of our reality using phantoms.
Okay, that covers how our data is encrypted, how we defend against the quantum threat, and how our subconscious behavior acts as the key.
Right.
But if my physical behaviors are my new password and my data is locked in homomorphic encryption, who actually owns my identity online? Because right now, the massive big tech companies are still holding all the keys.
Reclaiming that ownership is the final and perhaps most empowering piece of this technological shift.
Good.
For the last 2 decades, the internet has forced us to overshare simply to participate. We rely on centralized tech giants to verify who we are to third parties.
The sources illustrate this beautifully with the proof of age problem. Think about the current system. You go to a secure building or even a restricted website, and you need to prove you're over 18.
Right.
What do? You hand over a physical driver's license or some equivalent ID.
And in doing so, you are handing over entirely too much collateral information.
Exactly.
To prove a simple binary fact, is this person 18, yes or no, you are unnecessarily revealing your full legal name, your exact home address, your height, your eye color, and your specific date of birth.
You just wanted to get past the bouncer, and instead you handed a complete stranger your entire biography.
Exactly. But from 2026 onward, the blueprint introduces decentralized identity and a cryptographic tool called zero-knowledge proofs, or ZKPs. Right. ZKPs allow you to prove that a statement is true without revealing the data that makes it true.
Yeah, okay.
In this new model, your verified credentials live in a secure digital wallet on your device, entirely controlled by you.
I want to make sure we don't lose the listener in the cryptography here. Can we break down how a zero-knowledge proof actually works without sounding like, magic?
Sure.
How do you prove something without showing the proof?
The classic analogy used by cryptographers is the Where's Waldo puzzle.
Oh, I love that one.
Imagine you have a massive, complex poster, and you want to prove to me that you know exactly where Waldo is hidden. But you absolutely refuse to show me where he is on the map because you don't want me to know his coordinates.
So how do you prove you found him?
You take a massive, opaque piece of cardboard that is much larger than the poster itself. You cut a tiny Waldo-sized hole in the cardboard.
Okay, tracking.
You place the cardboard over the poster and shift it around until Waldo's face appears right through the hole. I can clearly see Waldo. I have absolute mathematical certainty that you know where he is.
Right.
But because the cardboard covers everything else, I have zero knowledge of his actual coordinates on the original map.
That makes perfect sense. So applying that to the ID scenario, when a website asks, is this person over 18?
Yeah.
My digital wallet acts as that piece of cardboard.
Yes.
It uses complex cryptography to send back a single verifiable token that simply says, yes, this user is over 18. No names, no addresses, no exact birth dates, just the Waldo face through the hole.
The requesting system gets the guarantee it needs to allow the transaction without gaining any secondary knowledge it can store, track, or sell.
It completely flips the power dynamic.
It really does.
You're no longer handing over a dossier of personal information to every service you interact with. For you, the listener, this means you only share what is strictly mathematically necessary. You become the sole gatekeeper of your digital life.
It's a profound shift from being a passive generator of data for tech conglomerates to becoming a sovereign individual, protected by a proactive, highly intelligent digital architecture.
Let's do a quick recap of the journey we just took through this blueprint. We started by tearing down the static vaults of the past, moving to homomorphic encryption, where AI performs complex analysis on our data while it stays safely inside a locked box.
We examined the looming quantum threat of Q-Day and how we are building multidimensional, shifting mathematical labyrinths to obscure our data from algorithms that process everything simultaneously.
We looked at the death of the password and the rise of the invisible layer behavioral biometrics. We're moving to a zero-trust world that constantly verifies the unique microtremors of our hands and the rhythm of our keystrokes.
We explored how engineers bypass the privacy catch-22 by using synthetic data, training our AI guardians on statistical ghosts rather than real human honeypots.
And finally, we discussed decentralized identity and zero-knowledge proofs, letting us prove who we are using the digital equivalent of a cardboard cutout, taking back control from the central gatekeepers.
We are actively transitioning into a much more secure, cell phone digital reality.
It's an incredibly inspiring vision of the next few years, but as always, I want to leave you with a final, provocative thought to mull over on your own. It builds on everything we've just discussed, but pushes it to its logical extreme.
Right.
If our security is fundamentally evolving into an invisible layer tied strictly to our subconscious physical movements and microtremors, what happens when we change? If you injure your hand or simply age, and the rhythm of your keystrokes shifts, will your own infallible digital immune system suddenly perceive you as the intruder and lock you out of your own digital life? Where does the machine's understanding of you end and the real you begin?
That's a great question to leave on.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Stay curious, keep questioning the world around you, and we will catch you next time.